My shop is about 300 square feet, which is 300 square feet that I am very, very grateful to have available, but is a small enough space that I do have to be very conscientious about getting it organized, which is a constant work in progress, but also and keeping it organized once it is organized. One of the things that I did when I was rehabbing the shop, and I've got a video on this, was I put the air compressor up in the attic space of the shop. And I ran a line to this hose reel so that I could still obviously use it. And honestly, that was one of the best decisions that I made, was doing this, because even if the compressor was like sitting on the floor here, I'd still run this hose reel, because having the hose reel just on its own is way easier than having to grab a line or something like that, especially, you know, if I had to drag the air compressor out. It's just way better, and it's nearly the perfect solution because the tool is still available, and yet it's completely out of the way and occupying space that is otherwise nearly unusable. I wanted to do the same thing for my shop vac, but couldn't figure out where to put it. The attic really wouldn't work because even though I have access up to it from inside the shop, it's not super convenient. I can't stand up in there or anything, and having to empty the shop vac with the air compressor, I've got an automated thing set up so that I can empty it without having to go up there when I need to. But having to empty the shop vac, even if it was like a once a month thing, just really would be really inconvenient and annoying. But then it occurred to me that I could do the same thing for the shop vac that I was actually going to do for the air compressor, which is build a small shack on the side of the shop to put the vacuum in. Because I knew that hose reels for vacuums, like hose reels for air hoses, existed. It was just a matter of where do I put the shop vac. And I've seen people build like vacuum carts where they attach the vacuum to a cart with wheels and with like maybe a little like cyclone or whatever, and then a hose reel. And that's okay. And honestly, if you have a large enough space to be able to wheel that thing around, fantastic. But for me, it's just making a large thing, because I got a fairly large shop vac, even bigger and more difficult to find a space for down here in the main part of the shop. So what I decided to do was just build a small shack, a slug shack. And I built it with mostly scrap material because it didn't need to be very big. It just needed to be big enough to hold the shop vac. Then it was just a matter of running some pipe inside the shop and attaching it to a vacuum hose reel. So I wasn't sure if I was going to talk about this or not, but I think I'm going to. Or at least I'm going to record this part, and I guess we'll find out if I actually put this in the published video or not. This is a Cox Reels hose reel. It's commercial grade. It's fantastic. Very, very well built. Love it. Highly recommend it if you're going to do something like this. The hose is from Rockler. It's a 70-foot hose, vacuum hose. Fantastic as well. Feels very well made. Like it so far. No problems. Feels like it's going to last forever. No problems with that. The reason for the mismatch, because Cox Reels does make their own hose for their hose reels, is because I had originally ordered the Rockler hose reel. And for about 2 weeks, it worked great. I started to hear a whistle whenever the shop vac was on. And that whistle was actually louder than the noise from the shop vac coming through the wall, which was annoying from a noise perspective, and also annoying because it indicated that there was some sort of leak. Performance didn't seem to be affected, at least in any way that I could tell. But it was still, again, the noise was still annoying, and then you want to eliminate any leaks as much as possible. So I ended up tracing the leak to the hose reel itself, the Rockler hose reel. And if you I don't have any pictures of this, but if you picture that the hose reel is obviously spinning, but then there's the connection on the other side here that the shop vac gets connected to, and that's fixed. So there's got to be a joint in there that can rotate but also maintain an airtight seal. It's that joint that was leaking on the rocker one. And I contacted them about it, and when they finally responded, they said, oh yeah, we have a part that we can send out to you. And in the meantime, I had also looked at some more reviews, deeper on their website, on the reviews, past the first page of reviews, and found that other people were having this issue, and had this issue. And Rocker's response, they have a part that they could send me to fix the problem, indicated to me that they knew that there was at the very least a potential that their hose reels could have a leaking issue, and yet they're still selling them in a potentially defective state. So that left a bad taste in my mouth. And that's basically it. That's the story. And so I would recommend probably staying away from the Rockler hose reel itself. I've got, like, again, the hose is great, and I've got the different accessories and things like that for it. The only complaint I have about the brush is that the inside bristles get crushed, and then it creates, I don't know if you can see that or not, but it creates a spot where you get basically, if you're vacuuming up sawdust, you basically get a clog right there, and yeah, just clear it, poke it with your finger and clear it out. Not a big deal, but anyway, the hose is fantastic. The accessories are so far great for the hose. The reel, can't say I recommend it. Anyway, on the happier things. So I've got the hose reel attached to this 2-inch PVC pipe. It goes down. There's a T-joint right there with a plug in it, and then eventually goes through the wall and out to the suck shack. This T-joint right here with the plug in it, that's just potential future expansion if I want to add another hose or attach the CNC directly to that. One note on that is I originally had this cap with a small piece of pipe in there in that T-joint, and over time the suction on the vacuum started to slowly die. And what I found was that debris was gathering in this like a little bowl, and eventually had built up so much that it just basically had clogged almost entirely. So anyway, so I made a plug. This is just a 3D printed plug that I stuck in there, and it actually goes all the way up this joint right there, so that this is just a flat spot. Now this isn't necessarily ideal. Ideally you wouldn't want such sharp corners and things like that. I tried to make them as gentle as possible, but with like this one here that goes through the wall, sort of unavoidable. I actually attempted to bend the PVC with heating it up and trying to bend it. That didn't work out, and I wanted to just move forward. And honestly, the performance with this, I don't notice with the shop vac out there and all the connections to get it to, and I've got a cyclone on it, which I'll show you here in a minute, and then 70 feet of hose. I don't notice any loss of suction. So to turn the vacuum on, I don't want to have to go outside every time I want to turn it on. So I wired a separate circuit with an outlet out there that the vacuum can plug into. And then I just have a switch here. I can just turn on. To turn the vacuum on and off. I've experimented a little bit with using an Echo voice control, but right now the switch just works fine. Actually, what I may do, and I thought about this today, is having a switch on the end of the vacuum itself to turn the vacuum on and off. I think that would be something that would be super convenient. The hose, by the way, will wrap up either coming down this way or coming down the front. I had it originally coming so that it was wrapping, so it was the end was hanging down in the front. But I switched it recently to the back just because it's easier to get past the CNC and everything here. It's not ideal in terms of rolling it up because you're rolling it up backwards from where you would naturally want to, the natural way you'd want to roll it up. But so far it's okay, and we'll see. So let's go out to the suck shack and I will show you how the shop vac is set up in there and the Cyclone, and I've got some comments on the Cyclone as well. So yeah, let's go out there. All right, so here we are at the suck shack. So it's hard to see, but this is the PVC coming in or coming out from the shop. I got a Desk Deputy. This is the Mini or something with the new, this is one of their newer products. It's the DB bagger, I think. But it's got the bag, so the dust gets collected basically in the bucket when the vacuum is running, and then ends up in the bag. Basically the bag gets sucked together when the vacuum is going, and then when you turn it off, whatever's in here ideally gets dumped into the bag. I've got some comments on that here in a minute, but there is the shop vac, and then again it's back there and it's hard to see, but the power is back up in there. You may be able to see right. No, we can't. Anyway, it's just plugged in, so the shop vac remains completely unmodified. In fact, this is the original hose for it, so I can, and I have done this, just take the vacuum out. I can unplug it and I can use it normally without any major fuss or anything. So a couple of comments on the DB bagger thing. So first, this was a new product when I purchased it. They just released it, and I liked that it was a complete kit. I didn't have to, it came with the Cyclone and the bucket and bags and everything and the mounting bracket, and I liked that it mounted. I liked that it was a compact system. I did have some issues with it. What happens is when you turn on the shop vac, and I'll insert some footage of doing it here, is the bag gets sucked up, right? Not all the way, because there's this orange part right here. It's a grate, but the bag gets sucked, right? And the idea is that the dust enters a Cyclone, gets spun around, and then falls down into this bucket as sort of a holding space. And then once you turn the vacuum off, the bag relaxes, and then the dust falls down into the bag. This seems like, at the time, it seemed like it was a good idea. However, it wasn't. The problem I initially had was that the bag was getting sucked up into the grate so far that it was actually tearing the bag. To Juanita's, I think is how you say their name, to their credit, they, a few weeks ago, sent me out sort of an update kit that included a new grate, which is slightly different than the other one. There's some holes that are a little bit smaller, and then also some bigger, or some thicker, heavier mill bags that they said, because they said that they've recognized that there was actually, people were actually having this issue where the bags were getting sucked up so much and it was tearing and that. And they've changed the specification on the minimum thickness of bag that you can use with the DB bagger setup. So far, I haven't had any issues with the bag tearing. Originally, what I had done was I actually put a weight inside the bag, and then I also put this gardening like cage frame thing in there to keep the bag from getting completely sucked up, and that worked, but it was like, I don't know. Honestly, I'm not sure that the bagging system is necessarily something I'm keen on anymore. And what I've actually thought about, I'm going to see how this works with the update and everything, just to be completely fair to Juanita and everything. They sent that out to me. They didn't notify me. They just sent it out. I didn't ask them for it, so kudos to them. But I'm going to see how this works for a little while. But I think what I may end up doing is actually just building a wooden, basically box that has a container, a compartment that detaches, that the cyclone is connected to, and then sort of either a drawer type thing or something that you just unclip. So I'm going to see how this works, but I may try a different setup for the cyclone, and I'll still use a cyclone, but just a different setup for the collection part of it, because I'm not sure that I'm keen on the bag system anymore. So the other thing is that on the Dust Deputy itself, on the cyclone itself, I don't think it's separating as well as it should. I'm still getting quite a bit of fine dust that's getting to the shop vac. Now the reason for that maybe is because in an effort to make things as efficient as possible, I made up this fairly short hose, or as short as it possibly could be, between the Dust Deputy and the shop vac. And I've been reading some stuff that indicates to me that I may actually want to make this longer in order to help slow down the flow, because it may just be that the suction between the vacuum and that point on the Dust Deputy is so great that it's just completely bypassing and it's not spinning as much as it should and then letting the stuff go past. So I may extend this, make this longer, and experiment with that a little bit. But other than that, that is the setup. And again, this is set up so that I can just, if I need to, I can just take the vacuum out. The vacuum's not modified in any way, but I can still make use of it in the shop, and it's out of the way. So I think that's it for this one. I just wanted to share this setup with you. Maybe if you have a small shop, it gives you an idea. The shack itself I built with some scrap 2x4s and 2x3s. I think the only thing that I bought was actually a couple of 2x4s and then the corrugated roofing and then the fence pickets, which I used for the siding of it. I considered using one of those plastic, small, like sort of lean-to sheds that you can pick up like at Costco or whatever, but then realized I had the material on hand. Again, a cart, like a vacuum cart, which I've seen a lot of people do, makes sense if you've got the room to roll something like that around your shop. But if you don't, getting that tool outside, like the air compressor, or in this case the vacuum, out of the shop, but still making it usable, I think is a worthwhile endeavor. So as I was editing the video, I realized that you probably want to see how well the vacuum works. And I'll show you that. I also thought I would show you how loud it is in here with the vacuum running. I've got a decibel meter going. I'll be quiet for a second and then I'll turn the vacuum on and we can compare the two. So. Okay, so the decibel meter, so the vacuum is behind that wall in the suck shack. The decibel meter is sitting right there. It's just my phone sitting right there on the table saw. So it's a distance away. The hose is sitting right here. So this is certainly picking up some of the sound from that. Overall, it's a lot better than if the vacuum were actually in the shop. So now I will show you how well it works. All right, so I've got the vacuum going and I've got a pile of sawdust here. It's all the sawdust I could find. There's a couple of chunks in there, but it's all mostly just fine stuff. And even though I am wearing a lapel mic that's fairly close to my mouth, but the vacuum is running and you can still carry on a conversation in here. So that is a nice feature of this as well. So let's see how she does. So as you can see, there's no issues with the vacuum, even with all the hose and the connections going out to the shop vac. The vacuum doesn't have any problems sucking up sawdust and even little chunks of wood that you saw in there. So yeah, works great. Thanks for watching.